services. Do you remember Theological Student Sunday in your parishes? Any of you? Anybody older than me? Remember Theological Student Sundays? Oh, it's different here. Well, that's right. I forget you're on. I forget that you're on. They wouldn't come this far. That's right. Well, we lived in Woodstock. I grew up in Woodstock, so you're only half an hour from London. And our seminary, as you're aware, is a Puritan college in London. So this Sunday was called Theological Students Sunday. And the purpose was for them to come and share their story. And most of all, you asked them to come and share their call story. And the other side of that, we were asking for money to support the Master Divinity program at Puritan College and to gain support for the college. But the main focus was their call story. Because today's gospel, the story from Isaiah, all the pieces today are what are called call narratives. It's stories of people of faith who have been called by God, called by Jesus, to change their lives and to come and to follow. And there isn't a theological student. Ask Carrie. If you get a chance and you haven't heard her call story, ask Carrie. Because one of the things you have to do when you apply for seminary is to write your call story. And about the two favorite passages that people choose are Isaiah, Jeremiah, those call stories of the first disciples. And sometimes I think we get confused thinking that only the funny folk in the fancy outfits and the collar that really gets tight sometimes. It gets tight to remind you what you're there for. That they're the only ones that have ever received a call. Because sometimes we have to believe that, don't we? It's only those ones who have become ordained that have truly received a call from our Lord. And you know it's not true. Do you know that's not true? Every single one of you sitting here who has been baptized into the life of Christ have received a call. You have. And as you make that journey towards your confirmation, where you start to understand the work that started at your baptism, you start to see the importance of you being named and called to be the children of God, that you've been named and called to be, and never doubt for a moment that you haven't been named and called by God to be the children of God He has named and called you to be. Because when you were baptized, you were marked with the sign of the cross, and you were named a child of God forever. Forever. Doesn't matter what you do. God called you, He named you. You are marked with the sign of the cross, and you are named His forever. And usually it's not until, I know for me, I was about 2021, when I finally realized the importance of what had happened at my baptism. And I was 12 when I was confirmed, because that was considered the age of reason in the Book of Common Prayer. Because in the 1600s, you got the right date, don't you? 15 days, Book of Common Prayer. If you were 12, you could get married, have children, go to war, make a living, have a family, die at, 22. So it was a good life. And the church never really changed that look at the 12. You can make really adult decisions. Now, any of you with 12-year-olds, don't they all think they can make really adult decisions at 12? Like, seriously. There's not one that doesn't think they can't smoke, drink, drive their car, and have sex. Really adult decisions, really adult things. And strangely enough, the church believed that the age of reason was 12. And at 12, we were all prepared to make our confirmations. I was confirmed, oh my goodness, how many years ago? I'm trying to think, I was 12. 44 years ago. Oh, I still have my prayer book. 44 years ago, I was confirmed. And I was confirmed with a class, I think it was 30 of us that were considered children, and there was probably 10 or 12 adults that were confirmed at the same time. And we really believed we knew. We really believed we knew what we were doing. I was incredibly religious at that age. I bet you find that hard to believe, don't you? Oh yeah, I could repeat every page of the Book of Common Prayer. I seriously could. That's how religious I was at the age of 12. But did I really understand? Did I really understand the responsibility for the journey, the call that I was undertaking? And I doubt it. I highly, highly doubt it. It wasn't until I was saved, I think I was 21. And I can remember that the minister actually preached a good sermon for a change. It was one of those rarities, where it was a really good sermon. And I actually remembered it, it's always stuck with me. And it was at that moment I realized that these Gospels we share every Sunday, these words we share in aren't just words. I have been called and named by God to be a person in His sight, to do His work in this world. And that was the most amazing experience for me at 21, because at 21 we seldom know what that looks like either. I knew it wasn't my work environment at that point, but I knew that I was called to serve in my home parish beyond what I did for a living. So I became the church lady. I bet you can believe that too, can't you? Didn't wear the hat and gloves, but I became the church lady. Oh, honey. I was on the Chancellor Guild, and I was pious. I took my calls seriously. Chancellor Guild, choir, board of management, taught Sunday school, became the Sunday school superintendent actually at 21. Oh, went to synod, went to 53rd weekend, lay delegate. I lived in church. It was only maybe 2 blocks from our house, so I could walk there because I couldn't drive a car at that point. So I was your church lady. I discovered that there were tasks for me to do, there were ministries for me to do in the church, and I was really happy. I was incredibly happy about that, because at that point I realized in my life that there was a family of God that would love me. It's not that my own biological family didn't love me, but here was a place where I could grow. I could go to Bible studies. I could talk about my faith. And I could start to try to discover who God had called. What was this journey like for me, this child of God, named and called and blessed by our Lord? Those were incredibly important times in my life. And during that journey, our journeys are never easy ones. My mother became critically ill when I was 21, ended up with an amputation, lost her eyesight, was wheelchair-bound. We cared for her for almost 9 years. She died when I was 30. Dad died when I was 19. So pivotal moments in your faith journey, wouldn't you say? Pivotal moments in your journey as a child of God. And then I can remember, after Mom died, my aunt died 40 days later during Lent. They were never apart. My father had the joy of having 2 women to tell him what to do every day. And it worked well. He went to the barn a lot. He was outside a lot. His garden was gorgeous because he was there from the time the sun rose to the time the sun set. But I had those pivotal crisis moments in my life as well. And I can remember at the age of 30, after my mother dying, not knowing who I was, because I had been a caregiver from the time I was 21 to the time I was 30. And it was heavy-duty caregiving. When you have someone with an amputation in a wheelchair that needs assistance of daily living, you're doing a lot of caregiving. I also had 2 teenage brothers. If you have teenage brothers, you know that they take a lot of caregiving. A lot. And we also had my aunt living with us, so it was a really interesting time. And I can remember